Hi, it's Faye from Norway. I am so pleased and honored to have you here. Today we're going to talk to Goura in Damanhur, spiritual community in Italy, and we're going to talk about inner voices. I've been working with women for about 12 years, and I know a lot about our inner voice. Sometimes we have the inner goddess, but other times we have like this inner bitch, this difficult voice that are telling us that we're not fine. So, welcome to you, Goura. I'm so honored to have you here.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks.
Boy, very pleased.
So, again, tell a little bit
Okay.
about yourself, Goura, before we start.
Well, I can share with you my passions. So my biggest passion is life.
Mhm.
Uh, my biggest passion, well, is life and a sacred approach to life. Basically, that's why I've been deep into alchemy studies, and plus I'm organizing transformational journeys to work with our inner god, our inner goddess, in contact with nature. That's another passion of mine, being in nature. That's what I love, one of the things that I love most.
Wow.
So, and this, I mean, these topics are what I'm dedicated to. So, what I'm doing is all connected to all these topics every day. So I'm feeling very lucky.
You are. And I'm so lucky to have met you. And I'll just wrap it up for the new ones, the listeners. It's about a year ago, I was really soul searching myself. And in that soul search, I was in nature. And actually, nature talked to me and like whispering in my ear, you should check out alchemy. And in my search of doing that, I found a lot of nice books, but I'm not a reader. So I thought to myself, I have to find a school. And then actually two schools came up. One was very blue and very business. And I thought, no, that's not for me at all. And the other one was Damanhur. And I had a beautiful conversation with you, Goura. And I immediately like both fell in love with your energy and who you are. But also there was a part of me like recognizing you. Maybe you should start there again because I know a lot of listeners have this feeling. Have you met before? Do we have any connections from before? Yeah.
Well, we do. We
Yeah.
do actually. I mean, if you think about reality in a broader sense, I mean, we are all connected. So not only we fellow humans, but we are connected to the plant world, to the animal world, to the spiritual ecosystem made of energies, entities, forces, nature spirits. I mean, we are part of a big ecosystem. The issue of the disconnection that we've been as humans exploring in the past millennia is due to the wrong thought we have that we are not connected to one another. So, and it is proven also in physics. I mean that everything is connected to one another, and when you have an impact on something, let's say here, my action right now here, moving this bottle from one place to the other, I mean, it recreates an action somewhere else because the universe tend to be always in balance and rebalancing constantly. So every single tiny actions we are performing, I mean, it has an impact somewhere else in a different
And
space.
this is really hard for many to understand. So we have to go deeper here because you say that I put on my glasses right now and something happens another place.
See? Yes, because in the universe, all living beings and objects, so everything that is present in the universe is connected to one another, and the universe, to maintain constantly a balance, because that's what, I mean, evolution is about. To maintain it, it needs to readjust constantly. So in this readjustment, every single action we take, it has to correspond to readjustment somewhere else. It's difficult to say, and also to grasp intellectually, that I don't know, a butterfly, flying here, it has an impact on the other side of the planet, or my movement of the bottle. I know that intellectually is difficult to grasp, but this is how it works. And if you think about, for example, also everybody's life, let's stick to our personal realm, okay? Our life, one's life. So all the time, although we're not aware, we're not conscious most of the times, but every single experience, event we go through, is the result of a broader interconnection that each one of us has with its own divine being.
Yeah. So can I stop you? Because we have heard about cause and effect. That's really what you're talking about. That is, if you're not so spiritual, I know that we know about the cause and effect. And I want to go from this because I relate to my physical world. And at the same time, I have this inner voice talking to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really what you say. It's really, if you see it like that, challenging to be kind of a human being because there's things happening all over. And if I do something, there is an effect someplace else. And at the same time, I have a thought about what I'm doing. And that thought could be either positive or negative or neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we switch to that because we want to talk about the inner voices today?
Well, yes, I want to talk about inner communication. So, yes, because the quality of our life, it depends on the quality we have, the quality of relationship we have with ourselves first, then with others, and with the environment. But we never consider, or at least is one of the things that we consider after all the others, to reestablish a direct and, let's say, inspiring communication with ourselves. But what I'm talking about, when I say ourselves, I mean, well, as we talked about last session, I mean, we have many voices within, so many life experiences here present in this lifetime, that they are expressing themselves sometimes in many different directions. But the task of our higher self, so what I call higher self, and I mean, let's say the god or the goddess we contain, the divine principle each human has, that piece of consciousness we have. So inner communication is a matter of reestablishing a deep contact with this principle. Because as you said, there's many, well, basically, let's say that there's two main ways to react in life: by accepting, by saying yes to life, to movement, to evolution, to changes, or by rejecting this, by refusing, by saying no, I don't want to change, I don't want to move on, I don't want to have other challenges. So these are the two main directions of the universe: towards light, towards giving light to your inner light, or the opposite, like being guided by your shadows, by mostly by your negative sides. So we never think about talking to ourselves, to our higher self. And this is something that when we were children, it was very, very natural. How many times have you been talking to yourself? Me, many,
I
you know?
still do. I still do a lot. But let's because there's so much beautiful information, Goura, but I know that it could be difficult. So I'll just go back. Let's talk about the higher self first, because it's like I incarnated now in this lifetime, but still there is a thread up to something you call a higher self, a smarter part of me that I can contact and get information from, but most people don't.
Right.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the higher self.
So when I'm talking about higher self, I mean that piece of consciousness that comes from the greater consciousness that we host. Okay. And this is the connection that we can have, possibly, that we can have if we develop it, to the greater consciousness and be guided by inspiration. So, inspiration of this greater consciousness. So, we normally, let's say we stick to our intellect, to the personality, to the identity that we have created. Well, actually, that society, the society we've lived in, we are living in, have created since we were born by, being basically, for me, identity is being a number in this, society of uniformity, where, you're born to work. I mean, you're born to survive, basically, because you are most of the time in a context where, we perceive reality through our material aspects. So, how many objects we have, how much money we earn. And this is, we misunderstood completely the very essence of being. When you give light to your divine principle, I mean, you're not depending on anymore on the external things, people, events.
I love this. So we have to just talk about this because we need to understand that we are not everything else that we see. We have an inner spirit. We have a soul, and that is connected to something bigger. And that bigger is also what you call the source, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, where everything is. So when you ask for something, you should actually just be open to receive. Yeah, because there's,
Yes.
yes. Talk a little bit about that receiving, because that has to do with inner communication. I think a lot of both women and men, they think they have to deserve it to get it. You understand? Yeah.
Well, is a process to become fully aware that we are that inner principle, that divine principle. So, is a process. It doesn't happen suddenly. Okay, it might happen, in a lifetime or also in the next hour. It depends on you.
Yep.
It depends on the work you do on yourself. It depends on, yes, how much you want to listen to that part of you and not to all the others. It depends on many elements. Okay, so it's not a sudden thing you become aware of, but we can get there. This is for sure. And all the disharmonies that we experience in our approach to yourself, to others, to the world, to reality, arise from this inner dialogue. Because dialogue, so I tell you now, this was a beautiful discovery I made, because I love to search the etymology of words, so the origin, the
Ah,
original meanings of words. So dialogue originally means inner image. So
Either image.
image is the
Ah,
inner dialogue, is basically the inner image you have of yourself.
my God, that's beautiful. But still sad in a way because a lot of people have a really bad inner image.
That's the issue. That's the biggest issue. Because if you do not work to transform the image you have of yourself, nothing would work.
Mm.
I mean, not at the highest levels you might reach, not at your highest potential. Okay. So that's why we need to work with the image that we have of ourselves. And again, the image we have is due to the conditionings we have received
Mm.
and the experiences we've gone through. So in our Western society, pain and suffering plays a big role in everybody's life. But if you think that, it's not a matter of the experiences you've gone through, what you feel, I mean, the emotions you feel, the state of consciousnesses that you go through, they're not connected to the experiences you are doing. And this is pretty weird to
Mm.
understand,
Yes.
because the experiences you are going through is your subjective interpretation of reality due to your conditionings. Example, in the Western world, or let's say in the Catholic world, to die is something considered, I mean, is a suffering, is a loss, is a great loss, is connected to suffer. I mean, you're losing a person, a care person. I mean, a person you care of, and this is, of course, on a human level, is pretty understandable, of course. Okay, but if you go in a different society, I don't know, Hinduism, let's say an example, that they consider death as a passage, and one of the important passages of life, where you evaluate yourself, what you've been doing in the past. I mean, in that lifetime, and you prepare, to be reborn, and maybe on a higher level of understanding reality. So is a process, is a continual process, also death, like birth. So it's not something that stops. Life is part of life, death is part of life, because it's a preparation to reborn. So you see, experiences, we need to understand that is not, I mean, we do not feel what we feel because of the experience, but again, is connected to the concept we have of that experience.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that because most of us are born into a community. You in Italy, me in Norway, and the thought system where I was born is like Christianity. We should go to church on Christmas Eve, blah, blah, blah. We have stuff that we do. But the inner voice, and as you told, most children are actually up to 7 years old only in alpha brain state. That's why they don't see reality as we do. But after 7 years old, the parents are, well, you cannot do that. That's not logical, blah, 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 all the things they're told. And since the brain waves also change,
Yeah.
the reality, the physical reality around us becomes more important than the inner voice, than
Right.
the image I have of myself. Then most people have an image of themselves that their parents have given them, their teachers, their boyfriend, girlfriends, all of that. So when they're about 20, 25, whatever, they have, most of them, a very sad dialogue about themselves. So let's go dig into that first, Goura. Do you have some good techniques for changing that dialogue?
Well, I've explored, yes, many techniques to, I mean, to shift and to create this shift and to start guiding, be guided by this inspired voice, which is your inner consciousness, your divine principle.
Mm,
So, first of all, as you mentioned, we need to access different brain waves. So, we need to start living in a more relaxed way. Okay. So, the inner dialogue starts when we feel that we have space within us, that we are not, so filled up with external life. So we need to reserve some spaces, to reestablish this dialogue, quiet spaces within and outside of ourselves. So this is one of the things that I suggest at first. I mean, because to hear the voice of your inner goddess or God, you need to be in a quiet space of you, of yourself. So this is the very first thing. You need to use techniques of relaxation every day to dedicate, this important space to yourself. So whatever it is, the technique is fine. Any technique, I mean, connected to breathing or to mindfulness, or I mean, whatever else, walking outdoors, swimming, something that shut down all the voices that you constantly have within, something like this. And so when you have calmed down your mind, another good exercise is to dedicate some time every day. So you define a space,
mm.
during the day, not all day long because it's impossible, but by defining a frame of time that you want to dedicate, just to create, the external observer that observes you while you're doing whatever you are doing.
I love that. I have to stop you there because I call it me time. It's very important that we all have me time, but not me time only as in looking at Netflix, because many do, you know,
No, no,
because
no.
that is what's happening when you see Netflix. You get information in, and really what you do is listening to the information you have inside. And what happened to me is what I was in nature, and actually I talked to the plants, and I told them, I'm sorry that I really don't know how I can use you, because I know there's flowers and herbs in nature in Norway, but I didn't know how to use them. So I started actually to talk to them with my voice and said, I'm sorry, but I see that you're here, and I'm going to try to find out more about you.
Yeah,
And then, in a silent moment, when I was walking there looking at the trees and there was no one around me, then this silent voice said, why don't you look up alchemy? And that is really listening to the inner voice instead of what everyone else's want me to do, or what's logical, because we live in a very logical world. So if I tell this to my parents, well, they're used to calling me kind of crazy, but I tell them, I think your life is crazy because you don't listen in. So it's most people are not used to listen to their inner voice, and if they do, they're told they're crazy.
yeah,
So there is like a development also in the soul, or in this aspect of who you are, when you really start to trust your inner voice and
yeah.
have great dialogue. Yeah.
It is, again, yes, is a process, to get there, because, well, I've realized in time that, well, until I was 18 years old, living with my parents, I was really conditioned, by judgments, by their expectations. Living in this environment was constantly stopping me from express exactly who I was.
Hmm.
So I needed to leave, to do the to start this self discovery process. Otherwise, I don't think I would be able to do it, because this the force that the pressure that everybody puts on you, from the parents, your husband, your children, whoever. The pressure that you receive society is so much that it is very difficult to step out of it.
Yes.
And and I want to remind also that we are not aware that what we think is what we create. So this is one of the most important spiritual principle. Thought creates. And consider that, our body, which is a perfect machine, perfect electrobiochemical machine, but also sacred, with an energetic structure, is a perfect machine that obeys to the information that we give to it. It's not the opposite.
But this is magic, Gura. This is magic, and I think
It is.
we have to say it again and again, because most people don't believe and understand what you just said. They
But
don't.
to take it down more earthly, uh, every single thought we have, each state of consciousness we feel, it produces corresponding chemicals in our body. And this is something that, in these past 20 years, many scientists have been talking about. So, and basically, our body, the effects that we have on our body is the result of these chemicals. So imagine if you spend, most of your life having negative thoughts, judgmental thoughts, thoughts of fear, of pain. What you produce in you are just, killing yourself spiritually and also physically. That's what you're doing.
Yes, and one more thing, because I work with women, and when we start working together, they always tell me about their friend being so much more negative because they listen to their dialogues. And back in time, I know that when we start our self development and talking better to ourselves, we react on other people's negativity. And one of my past friends, because it's important for us to understand that if you have friends that's or parents that's really really negative, it's going to inflect your aura too. Even if you try to protect yourself, it's going to infect you. And one of my past friends, she said, Faye is not interested in being my friend anymore because she says I'm so negative. But I'm not. I am realistic, you know? So that's one of the things in our society too. It's like, no, I'm not negative. I'm really, really, looking at life and says this is how it is. And for them, it's really hard to understand it can change by thought.
I mean, the creative power of our inner consciousness is to create. So is to create, and is connected to the way we think, because a thought is something that is conceptual, but it's something that we have before we externalize it, and we make it effective. We translate it into something real, in something material. So, and if you think, I invite people to think about the thoughts they have and to connect the thoughts they have to the experiences of life they've gone through. They might find very many connections. So is, thoughts is the ability, I mean, thinking. Well, we open up to a big chapter because, we humans, we think that we think, but we don't. So men do not think. We think that we think, but what we do is just to elaborate, re-elaborate thought.
Mm.
Is because as we're using mostly our intellect, our mind, and is not in balance with all the rest, is just is a sort of remembering. So we would be able to think and to regain the power of creation, of thinking, only when we connect with this higher self. But that, because that is the power of the higher self.
So let's then talk about, can I just stop you? So
Yeah.
let's then go into the as above, so below, because this is really what you're talking about. And the first time when I came to Damanhur, I didn't understand it because I thought as above was like, okay, there's something up there affecting me. But what you're really saying is something inside is affecting everything outside.
Inside and outside.
Yeah.
But the process starts from the inside. So let's say that the process in this very epoch starts from the inside. I mean, we needed as humans to go through all the discoveries, all the actions we've taken, all the misleading actions that we've done. I mean, we needed to go through this to understand that we have the power to create what is external. But I know that we're not aware of it still. The majority of us, they do not do not think that is possible because of the image of they have themselves, because we always thought about this inner consciousness, this divine principle, always and only outside of us, not
Yes.
within us. But this, I mean, was done by the monotheistic religions, but that was a way to steal the real power of humans.
Yes.
So,
So, and that is pretty. We need to know that we have lived in a patriarchy culture for at least 10,000 years. So, what you say now, it's just not one sentence. I want everyone to be aware of that because I was born from a mother that was born from my grandmother, and all of them have been into this thinking system.
yeah,
So, when they also give birth to us, they do a lot of things from the mechanical thinking because they think they protect us.
of course.
So when you grow up and you start your inner dialogue, and if you want to be like you and me, really go off of the main thinking, the ones that love us will react in a way to protect us because they don't believe in the way we think. And this is important to say because I work so much with people having a discussion inside. Can I really do this? Because blah 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 is going to happen, my family is going to react, my friends going to react. And that is part of self-development and being a creator, because when I create, I cannot be mindful of what everyone else wants me to do. I have to be mindful of myself. And then I have to have a great image about myself to do that, to be that empowered and that strong. So, can we just go to you, Goura? What happened to you? Because you were also born outside Venice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell a little bit about that and then go to Damanhur, what kind of society you live in and what you do now?
Well, haha. Now I was going back in time. Well, actually, I've been brought up, yes, in a very tiny village close to Venice. and Catholic village. The majority of people are still Catholic there. And but since I was little, I've always had the feeling that I was not belonging to that place.
Hmm.
I mean, it has always been present in me, this sensation.
Hmm.
So I attended school. I mean, I had some friends there, but not many, to be honest, because I couldn't understand the culture. Well, actually, in the northeast of Italy, still there is a great culture of, work, of work. People there work a lot, and they accumulate goods, material things. They do not really live, they do not work to spend their money to live better life or to travel. I mean, I don't want to generalize. Of course, there's people that are doing this, but the majority still, putting apart savings for the children, buying houses. I mean, invest the money in something short. I mean, they're not really, looking for different things. I mean, the world is so rich. There's so many, experience that ones can live.
So even when you was a child, you have this inner dialogue with yourself. This is not for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I mean,
Yeah.
it has always been present. And I maintained it all the time because, I mean, from one side, my family was asking me to act in specific ways. And I was just not understanding why should I go to attend Catholic classes if I'm not interested in? Why should I go to church on Sunday if I do not believe to this thing? And and because of appearance, maintaining this appearance for neighbors, parents, people around me, they were pushing me to do this. But then when I was
Yeah.
8 years old, I said, I mean, this is enough. I mean, I cannot do this.
I
I
know I
cannot.
did the same. That's why I think we know each other because I did the same. It's the same reaction as you had. And really, what I want is that for everyone that's looking at us now and listening to this, if you had the same, it's nothing wrong with you. You're actually more connected to your higher self.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I remember one experience when I was 8, that that was the last time I went to church. So my mother forced me to go to church, and I went, and I was wearing a skirt, a very short skirt, and a t-shirt with no sleeves. Okay.
Mm.
And I remember the priest that he didn't allow me to access the church. And I
Mm.
said, why? And he said, because you need to cover your body, but I'm not ashamed of my body. I mean, what's this?
Yeah.
So when the priest didn't allow me in the church, I said, great. I said, I'm not coming anymore. I'm gonna go back to my mother. I will tell her that you didn't allow me to get in because of this, and I'm not coming anymore. You won't see me anymore. So since then, I didn't go anymore. But that was, an argument in my family constantly until I left. Then I was, I've been looking. So this voice, this inner voice has always been present, very present.
Mm.
And I've been guided by it. I'm sure about it now. Looking backwards, I'm sure about it because since I was teenager, I was looking for alternatives, always alternative people to, to be friend with, alternative places, alternative way of thinking, alternative philosophies. So I dedicated myself to alternatives. So I know that because of this, I've been starting, more and more attracting what I was looking for.
Yes.
So now I can say, well, I'm 50 now, but I feel that since I started trusting consciously, this inner guidance, and that was in my 26, 27, not before, because before I was really messed up within me. different directions. I mean, I was pretty confused about everything. But then when I started trusting this inner voice and, and listen to it, I can say that since then I've been guided to do
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
And my response to life, since then is, whatever happens, whatever, comes to me, I say to myself, yes, let's explore it. Because if it came to me, it means that I have to do something with it.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's
So, and no matter, but I need to put aside, this is another exercise, to start listening more to your inner voice. You need to put aside all the, let's say, the intellectual concepts that you have towards events, towards experiences, the, the belief system that you have. You need to put it aside and to start thinking that whatever it is, whatever manifests to you, it means that you need to learn something from it, whatever it is. If you stop to your judgment, it means that you do not allow yourself to live a new experience,
mm,
whatever it is. But we normally, our first approach is that of the mind. So if what we live do not match what our mind can conceive, I just don't want it. I
mm.
just do not want to experience it.
So it's so beautiful. Also, I know it's challenging for most people that's not living in a, you are really living also in a community that everyone is more or less thinking the same. But most people, I'm living
More
in
or
a,
less, you said correct.
yeah, I know, because I've been there and I see that a lot of them are not. And I was like, are you living here? But of course, I see that the thought system, it's like you buy something like it's true. But then, as we talk about, the inner dialogue is still working inside of them in the old thought system, even if they live in Damanhur. And that's how it is. I mean, there's
That's how
bad,
it is.
very, yes. So and that's what I saw as well. But so for me it was like, well, I could go back and forth to Damanhur. I love the place.
Me too.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about this. You're actually sitting in the jewelry shop now. It's in a very magical place. And talk about Damanhur and a little bit about Falco and what he thought, his inner dialogue about creating this community. Because also he was like, he had this voice and talked to someone and then started it.
Yes. Well, let's say that Damanhur is a dream, basically. I mean, is it was conceived by dreams, by Falco's dream of creating a very spiritual and unique reality, together with Damanhurian people that contributed, to co-create this collective dream. So in this case, I would say that the dream became so real that it became our reality.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yes, but to realize this, it required a lot of attention. So a lot of attention. Well, Falco was the very first that he dedicated 100% his entire life to create Damanhur, because well, the thought of creating such a reality was, let's say, inspired, to him since he was little, since he was a child. And again, he was listening more, I mean, for sure, more than me. Otherwise, I would be, enlightened, but more than me, to his inner dialogue, because, since he was a child, he went through many weird experiences, so considered from the many weird, because he was manifesting things. He was deep into paranormal activities.
Mm.
So manifesting objects, manifesting things, healing people since he was little, healing his friends when he was 8, 9 years old. So things, big things, for that age to experience that he couldn't really comprehend at that time. And he had the courage, to follow these manifestations, these talents, these capacities, these abilities that he had to understand more. And that's from where his spiritual process started. So the creation of Damanhur is still, a co-creation, because Damanhur is based on changes, on movement, because Damanhur wants to be connected to the life principle. So here there's always, talks, discussions about things to be done. It's true that there's, common guidelines. So we do share, a system of belief which is common, big ideals, values, ethical values, spiritual values. So we share all this as a common thread. But then, to be able to manifest them coherently is a different story. Is a different story, because you need to give, each one of us would need to give space to this inner voice, to the voice of this divine um, principle. And each one of us is at its own level of comprehension, of connection with this principle. And so in Damanhur, things are challenging constantly. But what makes the experience beautiful, at least for me, is the approach I've learned to have towards what's happening. So I could spend, hours talking about negative aspects of Damanhur, as well as hours talking about the positive sides. But again, I want to remind me and to all of us that energy goes where your attention goes.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
if I start focusing here in Damanhur to the negative aspects, for sure, my life and my way of thinking will be dominated by it. It's like creating, an entity that then you're not able to guide anymore, and you are guided by it. So thoughts are something that you need to learn to create and guide, not to be guided by them.
And it's
But
very beautiful what you say, because it doesn't matter where you live, because there will always be like inner communication, and sometimes we forget and then go into the negativity, into the in kind of what you say, into the darkness, instead of having light, hope, see what's really expanding as well. And I think it's nice, because in society now it's so popular to talk about manifestation, and what is it really. And for Falco, it was his inner voice from his spiritual higher self, and from the source he was downloading or accepting the thoughts. He was
yes,
accepting this inner dialogue.
absolutely. So the approach we need to have in our life is an approach, is the approach of a researcher.
Yes,
That's
I
what
love
it is. We are researching life,
it.
in the different frames of time we have at our disposal in the different lifetimes. So we are researching again these this fundamental truth, because the fundamental truth of reconnecting with our divine principle is what all religions in many different ways, all philosophies have expressed, this inner guidance that humanity have always felt okay, expressed itself into many philosophies, okay, way of thinking. But basically, this is something that in this very epoch needs to be done individually.
Yes.
Individually, because we have all the knowledges. We have, if someone needs, we also have scientific proofs if someone needs to have them, okay? That and we need to understand how we work, to make this perfect vehicle we have, to make it work for us, not the opposite direction.
Absolutely. And then I have to talk about something else, because in the research study, there will always be something that you might interrupt as bad. And we have a very offended culture right now. People are offended by everything. And when you go into, I am so offended by what you told me, blah, 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 you will never learn anything. And that's maybe the biggest fault I see right now is I am offended. You shouldn't treat me like that. Or at my workplace, blah, blah, blah. Instead of having the researcher, what am I learning now when this is happening? And how can I use my tools about who I am, how strong am I, how smart am I, how can I communicate? So let's talk a little bit about that, because the inner dialogue when you're offended is like a diva dialogue. You shouldn't treat me, ah, la, 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 la. It's something like that is happening right now.
Well, it depends on your objective. If you want to be a diva, you can stick to that process, fine. But if you want to reconnect with your real powers, your spiritual powers of being, a magician of life, a co-creator of
I
life,
love it.
you need to be open. There's no other way. You need to be open to everything 360 degrees. You cannot shut down, shut doors. You cannot. Because if you think, life is intelligence. I
Oh,
mean,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
life is intelligence.
Yes,
So whenever you close the door to what life proposes you, you're closing the door to intelligence.
we are. And since there's not so much time left, I really want to say what's happened to us, because we're both very open for information that we give or get. And so this is for all of you out there wanting maybe to have more time with me and Goura. You are coming to Norway in the end of April because you're attending to an event that I have. It's called Sisterhood, and you're going to be on stage talking about alchemy. So it's going to be great.
Yes.
And the
Yes,
second,
I'm coming. Yes.
yes, you are. And I really want to, because this is like physical proof of me having a dialogue, you having a dialogue, we met, and then this is really how things are manifesting. Yes.
Exactly. I want to spend a few words about it because true, now that you were talking, I was feeling deep in my heart what I felt knowing you. Okay. And this, strong connection we had since the very beginning. And this joyful approach that we have one to the other, all the time. Because, and I trusted it. That's why I'm here. Every time, we talk to each other and we elaborate something, let's do a live,
Yeah.
live talks for female, or let's organize journeys, let's do, and we both say, yes, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Because if life brought us together, it means something, so that we are still exploring. But in the meantime, while exploring it, we're saying yes to each other.
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
and that's beautiful. And it's also for everyone listening and seeing us. It's like grab life and be at the research, because we are leaders in different communities, but it's like we also need to communicate and connect with different communities all over, because there is so many soul searchers right now that don't know what to do, because maybe the inner voice is starting, but they're really not trusting their inner voice yet. So
Yeah.
they're doing the same patterns or mechanic as they've done all over. And then who is getting more hurt? It's you. When you don't listen to your inner voice, you get so sad about who you are. And when you get sad about who you are, you lose your power. And
Yes.
when you lose your power, you get sick, you get like you lay down and you don't believe that life is magical anymore.
Yes. So
We are here to like give them the opposite, Goura. Yeah.
I want to translate power with energy,
Yeah.
because whenever you concentrate your attention to negative, you are losing the energy, losing the power, because by focusing on these negative aspects, you give away your energy. This is how it works. You give literally physically away your energy. So to have energy at your disposal to work on you, to make everything, any experience fruitful for you, you need to start directing your thoughts towards life. And life is movement, again, is intelligence, is is being open to the magnificent things that life can offer you, and trust. I
Yeah.
mean, trust, because this is how it works. But of course, the more you go deeper and deeper, and the more you also see consciously. I mean, you become aware practically, because you know we are now talking in theory. I mean, we're saying many things in theory, but me and I suppose I think that the best way for humans to acquire something, to make it yours, you need to have the personal experience. Otherwise, it would be always something that somebody else is telling you, but you do not experience. You have to express the courage, to say yes to life and to experience it yourself. And when you experience, why you're doing the experiences and trusting more and more how it works, you are going to recreate new brain connections,
Mm.
new brain connections, where you do not feel at a certain point of the process, you won't feel anymore any resistance within you. You just go for it.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And one of the things you can actually do is when you drive a car back home, drive another way than you
Oh,
usually
yes.
do.
That's another
Because
nice
that
exercise.
that is actually activating the brain in a different way, because you have to look, you will see different people, you will have different smells. Even yeah, if you do like me, open the windows and feel life. And
Right.
that's a way to do it. And also, Gora, we don't have much more time, but also we have to the ones that are listening to us, we have a crazy magical event to Zanzibar in October. We're talking about it, and I'm
Yes.
just putting it out because when we put it out, as we do now, there will be someone that listens that thinks this. I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna meet those two beautiful, magical women in Zanzibar, and this was your thought.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that before we start.
Yes, so Faye and I were planning an incredible magical journey to Zanzibar, Tanzania, Africa,
I feel the movement there already.
where we're going to, well, combine our expertises, Faye's and mine, to go deeper within ourselves in a beautiful environment where nature is the protagonist. So the ocean, beaches, animals, incredible plants. So that's we're gonna put together our experiences with joy. I think a lot of joy, And we're
I
going to
love that.
propose you a journey, a self-discovery journey in connection with nature.
It's going to be alchemy, it's going to be empowerment, and it's going to be swimming, and it's
Yes,
going to be enjoyment and discovery, self-discovery. It's a
yes,
journey where you will discover yourself, because you are the one to discover. And to do that, your inner dialogue has to be more positive than negative. That's
yes.
when we create.
But next talk, it will be, directed towards how to transform negative thinking, negative thoughts. So we're going to
Woohoo!
go deeper into it.
So it's actually 1 hour.
Yes,
So thank you so much, and
thank
thank you
you.
all of you viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for digging into deeper into yourself. I'm your host, and Goura is the beautiful alchemist, and this is what happens when you say yes to life.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Convoy.
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 Let's see if we can stop this.